Hello, I'm Dean Borg. This is the June 8th Market Plus segment of Market to Market. And our market analysts here, we have four of them. John Roach, our senior analyst, Tom Fitzenmeyer, Sue Martin, Virgil Robinson. You've been with us over the years, the longest. What memory do you take away about Mark Pearson that'll linger with you?
His humor. I mean, he brightened every day with ongoing humor, and it would range from singing a song to doing voices to telling a joke to telling you a story to talking about something that happened in his family back when he grew up. He just was continuously entertaining with that humor.
Virgil?
I think his vision. I work for a science-orientated company, and Mark would make an acquaintance of one of the scientists, remember that person's name and their projects, and would ask me details. I may not have even met them, but he had vision regarding what was happening years forward,
And a
not
great
years past.
great memory, too, back.
Absolutely fabulous.
Yes, Sue?
Well, I think the thing that stands out for me is Mark's selflessness. You know, he was so always worried about everyone else and agriculture as a whole. We couldn't have asked for a better spokesperson or advocate than Mark Pearson. And, you know, and even for the show of Market to Market, he was just awesome. And that's going to be a very tough shoes to fill. So for me, I would say it was selflessness, because whenever he would be on the show and we'd be talking, he didn't have to be talking all the time. God knows I kind of talk too much. He'd be going like this. Nobody see it, but he was telling me to hurry up, wrap it up. But it would be, for me, his selflessness. He just always was so, and it just came so naturally.
Yep. And he found time for his family all the time, didn't he?
That was
Even
always
though he
part
busy.
of it, yeah.
Tom?
Well, for me, I guess it's Mark as a friend, because he was somebody that if I had an idea or I wanted to bounce something off of, I could call him up and he'd give me an honest opinion whether I was crazy to even think that, or support me if he thought it was a good idea. So I really valued his counsel and his friendship. So to me, that was, I mean, in addition to all these things these guys have said, that to me was probably the most important.
So your relationship went far beyond the program, the Market to Market
we were
program.
very good friends for a long time, yes.
Well, let's get to some of the market analysis here, John. Corn this past week, what about it?
Well, the corn market's starting to pay attention to the weather, and
It's dry.
It's dry, and it's dry across a wide area, and the forecast really does not have much relief in store. I mean, there's some rains around for the first part of the week, but we really don't have that change in weather pattern. We don't have the cooling weather and more rain and so forth. So we're worried about the corn crop. It's pushing markets higher. And the challenge is going to be for producers in the midst of the weather worry to get some sales made on the higher prices. Because if the weather doesn't last too long, if we can get this hot spell over before pollination, we could very well have prices slide drastically lower by fall. But again, it all depends on what the weather conditions are like. We have a good crop right now, but we need the rain bad.
Lots of planted acres, John. Lots of planted acres.
Yeah.
The other thing I would mention, I guess, quickly is that to this point, export sales have tailed off pretty significantly, as I believe users have found alternative sources of protein. So let's not forget the fact there's still a pretty healthy position of wheat globally. So we do have some competition regarding price.
I also think that the quality of the wheat crop and the going from large yields down and being cut back because of the weather that we've seen as it matured, all of a sudden kind of stole some of the wheat's thunder away from the ability of compensating for very tight old crop supplies. And I think the basis is going to hang in there, but we have to watch that basis because it's going to slip away before super long. It'll be moving on out to further months. But I think that we are extremely tight supplied, and we have to remember pollination accounts for about 90% of that yield, and about 45–50% of that crop's going to be pollinated before the 4th of July.
And go ahead.
Well, just to offset a little bit of what Verd said, certainly exports are a problem, but I think a lot of that's going to be shored up by ethanol. We've had weekly production numbers that have been extremely good. I think by most people's accounts, the USDA is maybe a little low on their estimates of ethanol use. So I'm expecting, and we've got a report coming out Tuesday morning, we're probably going to see a reduction in exports counterbalanced by an increase in ethanol
And-
usage.
Even though ethanol economics aren't very good,
No.
frankly.
No.
They're
And
not very
the
good.
other thing too is that we have to remember that China, the world's second largest producer of corn, is also having major issues weather-wise.
The northern plains of China are dry.
Yes, very. And
Dean,
so we have to watch that.
Sue, excuse me, one quick thing weather-wise just popped in my mind. I saw Elwyn Taylor, Dr. Taylor's tweet this morning.
Iowa State University climatologist.
Yes, addressing weather, specifically the next 30 days. Good read. Everyone should read that. It's concerning.
Well, it's concerning that
Yes.
is the same thing affecting soybeans? I mean, they're planted. A lot of them aren't even coming up yet.
To some extent, Dean, but you know, the more pivotal time for beans, a little deeper in the summer months. But in the context of talking about beans, there are some other issues that are taking shape. Reports of rust have developed in quite a number of southern states, so there's some concern there. The strike in Argentina, I'm not sure of its duration, but the farmers' anti-government strike, there are quite a number of factors, variables in the bean market that are hard to, I think, define. Bottom line, however, and I think these folks would agree with me, the dynamics in the bean market are very explosive.
How is that affecting, Sue, the cattle and pork markets, knowing that we may have some very expensive corn and soybean meal in the future here?
Well, I think, you know, what's happening this year is next year's story. And I think that livestock producers need to watch these breaks, and because I don't think corn stays under $5 very long. And so that said, they need to be using, end users need to use these breaks, be it whether it comes into fall, they need to use those as opportunities to lock up for some of next year's needs in corn. The other thing that we need to watch on this weather pattern is what does it do to pastures? Now, granted, the Dakotas are in good shape. Northern half of Minnesota, or northern kind of an angle of Minnesota's in decent shape. But we need to watch because Nebraska is one state that could be very vulnerable. You hurt these pastures and these conditions deteriorate, we can't afford a liquidation in the cattle market because unlike last year when we were exporting at the same time and demand was very hungry for hamburger or whatever, this year's going to be a little different story. We'll add more bearishness to the cattle market.
So I think Missouri, biggest calf producing
Amen.
state in
Yes.
the union,
Yes.
abnormally dry and quite concerning. So that's an
The
area.
pasture ratings are actually drier this year than they were last year, even though they were
Yes.
quite dry in the far southern plains. This year, it's drier through the Midwest.
Oh, we
You know-
saw, go ahead, Sue.
There's another thing too when we talk weather is looking at Texas. The weather, we have a source that we use out of Europe and gives us outlooks for the whole month at a time and is usually pretty on target. Texas is the state, Texas, Arkansas, and right up in, like you say, Missouri, lots of issues with weather, heat that keeps coming up. And that's going to be a big concern because, of course, Texas is going to go by the wayside, I think, this year. And then Arkansas, there's a lot of beans there. And then you've got Missouri, like you say. I think we've got to watch this because it is a detriment for the livestock producer.
Tom, we're talking about weather being the linchpin here. I mean, that seems to be the central focus. But in the overall fiscal situation, everybody's watching Europe. Nobody's talking about the weather.
Yeah.
But we've got a fiscal condition in Europe that may be affecting agriculture as well.
I don't think there's any question it's going to be affecting it. It is affecting it. It's an ongoing problem that I don't see how it's going to be resolved in any good way over there. I mean, it just for the last year and a half, 2 years, it's just in every other month there's something else
What
coming
are the
up.
implications?
Well, I'm not sure we all know that yet, but it's hard to paint a scenario where it's positive
For
for our
the economy in
agricultural
general,
products.
but you're saying agriculture specifically.
Unless farther down the road, like we alluded to on the show, you start to see some inflation, then probably who knows what could happen. But in the
No.
next 3, 4, 5 years, probably not helpful.
They
The
import quite a bit
one
of
thing
stuff.
is, what happens if, because everything looks the worst, darkest before dawn. And I'm accused of being an eternal optimist sometimes. But,
No.
but, but the $8 girl on beans, it took a while, but we got there. But what happens when you get this little thread of confidence coming around the world? Get things sort of maybe settled down, get Spain, because they are the 12th largest economy in the world, get that sort of stabilized a little bit. What happens when you start to get that little thread of confidence? My goodness, where's prices going to go? Because food and energy is where it's going to hit.
Or, let me come from a different side. We're going to come into this next week scared to death about weather. And that could last a week or 2 weeks very easily. And we could have a very, very explosive grain market that just that takes that all into consideration. We put prices up to high levels, and then later we have to deal with the ramifications of Europe that doesn't repair itself, and the ramifications of the United States that has its financial situation, and the ramifications of China who have their issues. So we really have two different things here, one being internal within the crop, which is quite positive right now, which can certainly change, and then we have the environment that we're dealing with. And what Tom said, and I'm agreeing with, is that we really don't see a solution there. And if anything, the likelihood is we have more bad news to come out of Europe before we get that positive thing that you're hoping for later.
You touched on a little bit on ethanol, but just as you were speaking, it seems to me you've got a dichotomy here. You have crude oil prices dropping. You have the raw material price of ethanol rising. Am I correct in analysis there or not?
Not at the moment.
No.
Corn prices have come down, Dean, the last several weeks.
But the future is a little bleak, isn't it? With corn prices maybe going up or not?
The future for ethanol, you mean?
Yes.
There's policy to consider moving forward. We have a major election approaching us in November. I happened to attend Mr. Romney's caucus activities, and I get the impression, and I hate to talk politics, so I'll be as diplomatic as I can, I don't think he's on board with the use of corn and other feedstocks as a feedstuff to produce energy. So there could be enormous policy changes.
I think the
in the
political
immediate
winds,
future.
not just Romney, I think the political winds in general are blowing against ethanol right now.
think so, too.
that not that we're going to destroy the industry or
Yeah.
anything,
But
it's
you still
gonna-
have a mandate.
Yes.
You have a mandate, and until that mandate changes, we're going to continue
Yeah.
to produce for that mandate. And I would say today we all feel that while there's more ethanol being produced than what we would have guessed back in December as we face the end of the subsidies.
Well, thanks for your comments. And thank you for watching. That's our Market Plus for this day.